So for years, Iran and Qatar have developed a cordial relationship, strategic relationship based on pragmatism, because they share a large field, the world's largest gas field. And in order to produce this field, they need to have coordination, joint management. So there is an entente, a confidential agreement between Iran and Qatar to develop this field. Now that we have this conflict ongoing, not only it raises new uncertainties for the expansion of Qatar, LNG, which is ongoing, and the world is expecting it with anticipation to get cooler prices in 2 years from now. And at the same time, we have this uncertainty because nobody knows what comes next in Iran and whether the new future Iranian government will honor this arrangement that govern the joint field.
I want to ask a question I haven't really heard a lot of people ask, and that is, are the oil markets overreacting? And I ask that because now oil is a much smaller part of GDP than it was a few decades ago when we had the energy crisis of the 1970s. And also the U.S. is the world's largest oil producer. Yep. So why are we seeing the reaction? Or maybe we should be seeing a more aggressive reaction, but I'm asking you, the expert.
So over the last summer, when we already had the 12-day war, we had a spike in prices, and then prices revert back rapidly. The duration of the conflict will really impact how long we'll see higher prices on oil. There are mitigation strategies that are going to be developed fast. Even the U.S. government right now announced a shipping reinsurance for maritime, because right now the problem is the Strait of Hormuz for oil. That's the biggest problem, as well as some hitting of infrastructure, strikes on infrastructure, oil infrastructure. But the transit of the Strait of Hormuz is a big, handicap right now for trade. And if between escorts plus insurance, because the war premiums are to the roof, and nobody can travel right now.
What about pipelines? I mean, the answer is, I know that in Qatar there's the Dolphin pipeline, which is, the basic pipeline, but there's all sorts of pipelines that haven't been built. Is this war, for whatever reason, the catalyst for that area to grow up and put in a pipeline infrastructure?
That's such a good question, because for years there has been discussion potentially of Qatar building a pipeline, gas pipeline via Syria, and heading towards Europe, basically, to the Mediterranean, via the Mediterranean.
So is this the catalyst for that? I don't see it. It
could potentially be a big trigger. However, as you know, it's an unstable region. We'll need a lot of stars aligning, and also there is increasingly more gas in the Mediterranean that would be competing with this gas.
Let's say Palti-Guzman on this key question. Is the United States Navy going to provide escort service through the Gulf of Hormuz?
That's what President Trump's been saying.
Yes, I think we're increasingly, and not just potentially from the U.S., but I think additional power see it as an opportunity to reopen the sea routes that have been hijacked by either the Houthi in Yemen.
Okay, but wouldn't our boats be sitting targets, sitting ducks?
So it all depends on what's left in terms of weaponaries from Iran, and it's hard to gauge, but drones, missiles, we saw potentially mines. But I think the U.S. military, plus the Israeli, plus, France is sending an aircraft carrier. We heard some Greek, also Navy going in.
Yeah, didn't they shut their, a few boats that are taking on this risk coming from Greece, I guess, are saying they're shutting off however people could find out where they are. I guess their radar, they're shutting that off and sort of, in essence, going through the strait blind.
And this is where, dismantling this kind of rogue state axis, because they get intelligence and weapon sharing from China, from Russia, and those are actors that are, malevolent and are impeding the global trade.
Right. I got time for one more question. I freshened up my chart of oil in $2,026. We've had other occurrences of $120, $130 per barrel in $2,026. Can you see a further spike up from 105?
So to come back to Alex's question earlier, I think that, the fact that the U.S. now is one of the largest producers of oil, we have increasingly non-OPEC supply. That's a buffer. And that's also, why the timing of the strike, maybe a few years ago, it would have been impossible to do that. I think there is a buffer, but again, the duration of the war will be critical.